In this fifth episode of our series on camel management and milk production in Kenya, we're looking at a good strategy or recommended methods for calf and milking management. There are different methods of producing camel's milk. Here in Kenya, 99% of our camels are kept under a natural grazing system, a free ranging system. Now with this system, we're never actually going to be able to produce as much milk as the more modern camel dairies, which are found in the Middle East, in the United States and Australia, where the animals receive much more food supplementation. But there are balances in this system. Our milk is probably more natural, more flavoursome, and possibly has higher levels of the important components of the milk which make people believe the milk to be very medicinal. This is because the camels themselves are choosing the plants that they want to eat. Whereas in your zero grazed or supplemented feeding systems, most of that food is grown in a monoculture. It's irrigated hay or other lucerne type crops, fodder crops, and then they're fed to the camels, and the animals are not being able to choose what they want to eat. So I suspect we'll find different qualities in the milk from those two production systems. I also think that the free ranging system is much more similar to the ancestral behavior of the wild camels, where you keep the herd together. The calves and their mothers are raised across the generations, and also I think their behavior is much more natural. They can spread out, they're exercised, they can feed as and when they like on what they want to eat. So I also believe that it probably produces a happier, natural camel milk production system. Now, there are going to be some more challenges with the free-ranging system. As time goes by, it's more and more difficult for livestock to move large distances, and even to find large areas of grazing land, natural grazing land, where you can support the animals that are going to be producing your milk. So in time, we're probably going to be forced into more of a peri-urban or a zero grazing system. There are also challenges in the fact that the free ranging system, our camels are a long way away from the market or our consumers. So this makes it more difficult in terms of a successful business, because we have higher storage costs, higher transport costs, and those challenges of keeping the milk fresh until we get it to our customers. Every camel keeping culture have their own way of managing their camels. With the Rendili Gabra management system, camels in the dry season may go for up to 14 days without water. They tend to milk the calves much harder. In other words, the calves are separated from their mothers both day and night, and the camels are milked, although they're only milked morning and evening. The calves are only allowed to suckle one teat or sometimes two teats, so more milk is being taken off by the herdsman. In the Turkana system, it's the women who milk the camels, and the camels can be milked several times during the day. They will milk just one teat, other times 2 or 3 teats. So again, often the calves themselves receive less milk, they are weaker and grow more slowly. In my herd, I follow the Somali system of camel management, where some research I did showed that it actually produces more milk than some of the other management systems. Following the Somali system, for the first month after calving, we do not milk the mother at all, and the calf suckles all of the milk that it requires. If the mother has a lot of milk, then the herdsman may occasionally empty the udder after the calf has had its suckling time. Then, in the second month onwards, we begin to separate the calves overnight, but they continue to accompany their mothers during the day. This means that the calf suckles as much milk as it likes during the daylight hours. They return to the night pen between 6 and 7 in the evening. As they arrive at the night pen, some of the calves may be allowed to suckle 2 teats, whilst the herdsman milk the other 2 teats for the evening meal. After that early evening milking, then all of the calves are separated into the calf pen until 9 o'clock in the evening. At 9 o'clock, the calves are released from their pen, one by one, to initiate milk letdown, and all 4 teats are milked at that night milking. Then, by 10 p.m, all of the calves are returned to their calf pen and separated until 8 o'clock in the morning. At about 8 o'clock in the morning, the calves are again released one by one to initiate milk letdown, and we again milk all 4 teats. Once the milking is complete, the calves and their mothers are released at about 9 or 9:30 a.m. to go to the grazing area. In the Somali system, the herdsman may tie up 2 of the teats using bark or string, and the calf is only then able to suckle the remaining 2 teats. We don't use this in our herd because there's a slight risk it may increase mastitis. So the camels have come back to the boma. It is now 6:30 in the evening, and the calves have been suckling all day, and we're going to start milking them this evening. So as we bring them back, the calves have got into a routine of being separated, so they'll be closed into this boma until about 9 o'clock this evening, and then they'll be released. That gives us 3 hours of milk production by the mothers. Camels are different to cattle in the fact that you have to stimulate milk letdown, and that's best done by the calf. A very experienced herder can also initiate milk letdown, but generally it's the smell of the calf and the touch of the calf on the udder that allows the mother to let down its milk, and it's only once the milk has been let down that you can then start milking. As the milk comes down, the calf's tail will go down, and that's the time you know the humans are ready to get in there. Now milking takes 2 people. A skilled milker has to balance on one leg, and he balanced the milking container on his knee and then also against the camel's leg, and then he can milk with both hands. In terms of calf management, one thing that is vital is to make sure that when a calf is newborn, that within the first 12 and 24 hours it should be encouraged and helped to suckle as much as possible, because the first milk produced by the mother is called colostrum, and colostrum is full of all of the antibodies that the calf is going to need in order to survive. As soon as a calf is born, within the first hour or 2, help it stand and help it suckle. Some societies believe that colostrum causes diarrhea in the calves, and so they milk the colostrum onto the ground, but it is far more important for the calf to suckle the colostrum because it also helps expel the meconium, which is the fecal material in the calf's body, as well as providing antibodies to the calf. One other issue, and why colostrum is so important, is because if the calf dies, it's very difficult to get the mother to let down the milk. In fact, she'll often dry up and stop producing milk. This is because the calves are very important in initiating milk letdown. It's the action and the stimulus of suckling which releases oxytocin, which is the hormone that causes the milk ejection, or the release of the milk, so that the milker can then obtain the milk and milk it out by hand. The mother and the calf should stay close to the pen or the boma so that the calf is not trying to keep up with the herd. Otherwise it will get exhausted, it may get lost in the grazing grounds and then might be eaten by predators. So we encourage people to keep their newly calved females with the young close to the pen and the boma, but allowed obviously to graze throughout the day and for the calf to suckle throughout the day. But it does mean you need an additional herdsman in order to make both are in safe hands and are not at risk of predation. One of the challenges in milk production with camels is that the camels which give birth for the first time may not be very good at mothering the calf. It is not unusual to find some first-time calving camels reject their calves, and this poses a problem because the milk yield will go down, the calf might die, and therefore you're losing 1 or 2 years of production. In order to encourage bonding when a camel is giving birth, one needs to do it in a quiet and calm environment. The herdsmen who are helping the camel to calve should be calm and quiet and supportive to the camel. One should help the camel give birth by helping to pull out the calf, but only when the camel itself is having a natural contraction. And then once born, keeping a quiet environment, allowing the camel to bond with its calf, allowing the calf to be close to the mother's head so that the mother can smell the calf, and then also within an hour or two helping to lift the calf so that it can start suckling the colostrum. If the calf is rejected, you need to foster it onto another similar camel, or one needs to bottle feed that calf, which is time consuming and again introduces risks of contaminated milk into the calf, which can cause diarrhea, and the calf will not thrive. Bottle feeding also requires a lot of effort. You're having to feed the calf at least 4 times a day, and depending on the size of the calf, you should be giving it between half a litre to up to 1 litre at each feed. Now, fostering in the traditional systems used is often very brutal. Either they clamp the anus so that the feces build up again, and then when you release the clamp it feels like the camel is giving birth for a second time. A less brutal approach is to follow the Somali system, where they take the mother and calf to a more secluded place away from the rest of the herd, and then when the mother is on her own and a little bit nervous, perhaps by evening time, the herdsman will rush out of the bush, imitating a predator like a lion, growling and flapping their clothes and shukas in an attempt to make the mother more protective and wanting to protect its calf against the predators. And this can sometimes work as a fostering process. Now, if a calf dies and you want to foster another calf onto the mother of the calf that died, then again you need to take the skin from the dead calf and you wrap it around the live calf so that the mother will smell the calf or will smell the skin belonging to its dead calf, but will accept the new calf that you're wanting to foster onto it. Research I have carried out in the past also shows that the milk yield decreases as the animals become dehydrated. So in traditional systems where your camels may not be drinking water for up to 10 or 14 days, we found that there was actually a significant drop in the milk yield 6 days into dehydration. So again, it makes sense to allow your camels to drink water ad lib, or at the very worst scenario, they should be drinking water every 5 or 6 days in order to maintain their milk volumes. I did some research back in the 1990s where I recorded the milk yields of camels over 24-hour periods, and we found that with the Somali milking system, where the calves are suckling much more frequent, then the mothers actually produce more milk. If the calves are not suckling, then the mothers actually start producing less milk, and the pressure in the udder is higher, so there's less milk produced, because they're not like cattle and they don't have storage systems in the udder. My research showed if the milking interval or the suckling interval was more than 4 hours, the volume of milk produced reduced significantly. So theoretically, to maximize milk production, you would want to be milking or allowing the calf to suckle every 4 hours. Generally, we wean our calves at about 12 months of age. Occasionally, they will continue suckling beyond that. But the weaning process means that we're ending the lactation. We're taking the calf away from the mother. Now, this generally needs physical separation. In the case of male calves, it's quite simple. You can put the male calves into the male herd, and they are grazing away from the main female herd and their mothers during the day, and at night time they're penned separately as a male herd. But for female calves, they would normally remain in the herd with their mothers, so you may again have to separate them and have a calf herd for a couple of weeks until they have forgotten about suckling from their mothers and the mothers have again dried up naturally. Separating the calves at 12 months makes sense because then you're not over milking the females and leading to negative selection, which I've mentioned previously in earlier episodes. Again, at 12 months, once the animals have been weaned, we start branding. Sometimes the calves are still too small at 12 months of age, and if you brand them, the brand will not show very clearly later on in life. So often the branding starts at 18 months. As I said in our episode about breeds and breeding management, camels can live up to about 24 years here, and during that time the females can produce up to 8 calves, which is the same number of calves as cattle, but over double the time. Often we find the lactation or the milk production for the first calf is quite low. Then they increase into the second and third lactations up until the 5th lactation. After that, the yields of the camels as they get older may decrease. So, just some reminders or some hot tips about good calf and milking management. Remember, the colostrum is vital for the wellness of the calf, so encourage it to suckle within the first couple of hours of birth. If there is excess colostrum from the mother, you can always milk that colostrum and freeze it, and then feed it to future calves if their mothers are not accepting them after they have given birth. Secondly, since camels don't have milk storage space in their udders, the intramammary pressure, the intercell pressure builds up if they're not suckled or milked every 4 hours, and that means your milk production will go down. So it's important, if you're going to take up this approach of milking or letting the calf suckle every 4 hours, you also must feed the animals, so the female camels, so that they're not nutritionally stressed. Thirdly, if a calf dies, you should cut out and air dry the abomasum, which is a small part of the stomach which is used to clot and digest the milk. Because this dried abomasum we can then use later on to make cheese and other products from the camel milk, which we will discuss in the next few episodes. Finally, something I should have mentioned much earlier on, it's important to make sure that 50% or half of your adult females are either pregnant and the other half should be lactating. This will ensure that you will have a regular supply of milk year in and year out to satisfy your market. So thank you very much. I hope you found this information useful, and good luck.